Everywhere I go, people want to know how a smiling soul, why St. George I come from. And everywhere I be, people wondering why.
In Woodville Marshall's book of Halls, Hills, and Holes, Superlative is described as the old site of small property freehold village located to the north of St. Jude's Anglican Church. The name can be found in the 1847 list of landowners. This name was most probably affixed by James Cragg Kelman, the owner of the Prerogative Plantation. It could be assumed that this name, like Prerogative, was an expression of Barbadian bombast. Welcome to Superlative in St. George. Edric Burke gives us a lay of the land. Not only does he do that, but he explains how transportation developed into a thriving business with private bus companies.
Now, Superlative was a very quiet village. The area there where Superlative was located, it had on its right Bears Village. It has on the back Esmere, Greens, and on the north side was Ashbury and Golden Ridge. On the west side was Cottage, and it was surrounded like that. It was a limited amount of people lived in Superlative. That is from down by the main road up to the top part next to Ashbury Plantation. And everybody there in Superlative was like a family. Everybody had owned their property. There wasn't no rental properties from nobody. Everybody had owned their property that lives in Superlative, from down by Edric Cox up to the Biscombs, up in the top part of Superlative. And there was a limited amount of children. My father had 2, Leota had 6, Miss Mapp had 2, and Miss Seeley none, Miss Burrs none. And then up to the Simpsons, they had 3 girls and 1 boy. That was Elliot, Daphne, Beryl, and Carr. George Simpson was the oldest boy. He was running his bus company up in St. John, called the St. John Bus Company at the time. But his father was running the one in Superlative, which is B.A. Simpson. And to my honest truth, the St. George Bus Company was the only bus company in the country had an hourly service from 6 in the morning to 8 at night. You get a bus leaves from Superlative, 6 o'clock in the morning. You get one leave, 6 o'clock in the morning to Greens, 2 buses. Greens bus and St. Jude's bus. And they follow through every hour from top to bottom. The hour from top and the hour to bottom, from bottom, Bridgetown. And that was the only bus company on the island of Barbados that had an hourly service from St. George.
Talk about as stubborn as a mule. Edric tells us of his early boyhood days, a boy and his mule.
My father had owned a mule cart, and growing up there after I became the age of 11 or 12, I was driving my father's cart. But the mule he had was too large for me. The mule didn't want to listen to me. When the mule looked back and see who driving me or who taking me to bring water, it wasn't with that mule. So eventually, he had to get rid of that mule, and he went and bought a donkey. And he bought this donkey from a guy named Louis Haynes from down in Retreat Woods. Louis Haynes was a guy who used to do a little bit of emigration with animals, not with human beings like ourselves, with animals. You used to go to St. Kitts and you bring back donkey, you bring back mule, and you bring back horse. Now when you get them to Barbados, now my father was a character. In those days, a character is a guy that have a character was like for the plantation. He used to work at Ashbury. So what his job was, he had 4 mules that he in control with a cart, pulling a cart. He goes to town every Friday with these 4 mules. He bring back all kind of oil meal and all kind of oats and all kind of grains and everything for the animals. So whenever Mr. Haynes, Louis Haynes, come in from St. Kitts with these animals, he would always look for Mr. Burke to walk these animals from the boat to Retreat Woods where he lived. He had an area down there he would store these animals, horses, donkey, and mules. And my father would go down there, get them off the schooner or whatever they're coming on, and he would walk them up to Retreat Woods. That was his job. Well, he did, after all, bought a donkey from Mr. Haynes. And he had Mr. Bostic build a cart for that donkey because the mule cart was too big for the donkey. So he had to get another cart built, sell that cart off, sell that mule, and he get Mr. Bostic from down in Allerton to build a donkey cart and had that donkey all situated for me. And that donkey, you had to train that donkey to the cart because that donkey was wild. I can tell you, was wild. You put him in the cart, he got you know, he was wild. So he had to train that donkey to the cart because the donkey he was wild. He come from St. Kitts, out the woods and everything. And he didn't know about the noise or the wheels of the cart. So he had to be trained. And as soon as my father trained that donkey to the cart, he'd take me out on it, see how he could operate, and me and the donkey. Then I had to bring water and a drum in that donkey cart because we in Superlative on that area then had running water. In Superlative, they had no running water. We had no electricity. We had kerosene oil lamp and the water, everybody with a bucket on their head going down to the standpipe, down the hill, down to the standpipe. We call it Superlative pipe. St. Jude's had another pipe over there, and they call that St. Jude's pipe. Sometimes when the water is running very low at St. Jude's pipe, the occupants over there in St. Jude's Village would walk down to Superlative pipe, which may be going a little faster because the pumping station was over in Golden Ridge, over there. So our pipe sometimes used to be run a little faster than the one in St. Jude's. So I will go down there with my donkey, put my drum in, got a long holes about roughly 7 feet, push it onto the pipe, put it in my drum, fill my water, and I would take off. I would take off for home with that water. Well, when I fill my home with water, there's people in Super would ask me if I can bring a drum of water for them. Well, if it's not dark, because sometimes when 6:30, 7 o'clock it gets dark, if it's not dark, I will do it. And that drum can cost them 25 cents. So I will bring a drum for this person, a drum for that person, and I end up with 3 shillings. Because the shilling was 24 cents. Good. So I will do that, and I would make my little cash, and I would be able to buy my books when I was going to school, buy my pen, and I was very fancy. I always there's a friend of mine used to live in Newbury, And he used to have these pens like second-hand use. And he would sell me a pen, and it would be a platinum. And that, it carries in those days, those pens carried a little tube. You got the pen and squeeze them, they put them in ink and squeeze and pull that tube up. And that tube will run you a whole day at school, and maybe more. And that served you from, in those days, the school desks had ink wells. And a little round hole, you put an ink in there. I have a pen with a nib, an arm lip on a piece of stick about that long. And you dip that pen into the ink, and it was black ink. It wasn't blue ink. But my pen, now, I could have buy me a little bottle of quink ink to take to school. And everybody say, could I have a dip of that? Could I have a dip? Because it ain't right in black. It right in blue, nice blue ink. And my fountain pen, it was a bit annoying when I'm doing my subjects at school. Everybody I want some of the black ink, I want some of your ink. And their nib could only hold a nib full. But my pen had a bladder inside it that when you squeeze and fill that bladder, it lasts me a whole day. So what I do, I find out that this can be a nuisance, and I can cause a lot of obstruction in school, and I can get flogged from one school, from either Mr. Stout, Mr. Holder, which is doing the subject, or Mr. Cox. I can get flogged. You know why? Because everybody wants me to take out my ink for there to have a dip in it. So you know what I do? I use my brain. My fountain pen has a bladder. Leave my bottle ink at home, bring my pen full of ink, and that can last me the whole day. And some stupid guy still come, could you give me a drop out my pen? I don't know how much is in my pen. I can't give you a drop, because if I give you a drop, I may give you the last one. The school in there, we had St. Augustine's, and we had St. George, the main school, the parish school, St. George. St. Jude's was managed by the schoolmaster, Mr. Clyde Barrow. He was the schoolmaster for that school. And he had with him Earl Reefer, Ivan Stout, Courtroy Holder, and Granville Cox. And the later time when I was actually out of school, which I finished school in 1950. I went to the standard, to the end, complete and finished, and I leave school at the age of 14 years old. And when I came out of school in July 1950, and when we went to return back to school, a new teacher was hired at St. Jude's Boys School. His name was Quentin Dottin. He came down to Superlative. You see my name on the record there. He came down to Superlative and made all inquiries about me returning back to school. My father told him I passed out. I got my bursary certificate, and I am on my way to learn my trade. And that's where we started up. I learned my trade. I didn't learn my trade at Simpson's Garage, although I had some kind of interest in buses at the time. I wouldn't leave school. I'm going home for lunch, and even evenings, I would always pass through that garage and see what the mechanics are doing. And know what? They had the little wash thing there with gasoline, having to wash up the parts. I would always put my hand in it because I want to smell this gas. I want to smell this gasoline. And when I got home, my mother says, well, you had to stop at Simpson's Garage? I said, yes, I want to stop there. And I stopped there and she said, look, go to the tub with that blue soap and wash all that things off your hand. It smell horrible. Well, you know, women never like to smell gasoline. But as a little boy, a young fella, that is something want to register in my brain that I should be a mechanic, because I didn't get the opportunity to go like to sit an entrance exam at the time. I missed that, you know. And that by missing that, I spent a little time at my grandparents out Superlative down to my Lawrence Hill St. Michael, and end up going to another school over there, Moravian Boys School. But then when I returned back to St. Jude's, it was a little too late. I had missed that entrance exam. So I had to proceed on another program, which was after not going to a secondary school, like Lodge School, Combermere, Harrison's Colleges, I had to then take my look out a different way. And that is go learn my trade and make my life on from there on. And I went to trade 1952, and I did well at that. Leaving Superlative, younger fellows there, which my brother was left there, the younger fellow. Some of the boys around, some of the girls were there that some there went to the modern high school, some of them went to the Combermere and something like that. But I did my share at that St. Jude's, and I finished St. Jude's school. And I had good teaching at St. Jude's too, and also attend St. Jude's Church, Anglican Church. At one time I joined the choir there, and Mr. Jones was the choir master there. And he's from St. James. And he used to drive all from St. James to St. Jude's to conduct that service over there. And I had the opportunity of learning to play the organ. But in the mechanical and the buses and thing, I couldn't really concentrate on music. But that was a part that was offered to me also.
Edric shares with us a typical journey from Superlative in St. George to town. This gives way to the clever construction of baskets made of cane and other unique materials.
When I traveled on a bus, being the bus was in the yard one morning, suppose I said I'm going to take a 7 o'clock bus, I would always position myself, go up in the yard, and I can get in the seat alongside the driver. The driver's here, and I must have that seat because the bus is empty. The bus only leaving the yard with the driver and the conductor. So all the seats are vacant. So I can get that first little seat, what they call the conductor's seat. Because if the bus carrying, in those days, those buses used to carry 31 passengers. 31. And after that, and Simpson got a larger bus, it went to 37 passenger bus. Then it went to a larger size. But traveling on that bus, I board that bus, and it going down the hill and goes up to St. Jude's and turn from St. Jude's and going to Bridgetown. But traveling on the bus, I would say, was very unique. It was very comfortable. And more or less, the buses were all open at the time. When it says open, you enter on the left side of the bus. And on the right side, you goes around, you size round to the rail. On this side was rails on the right-hand side of the bus, because now in Barbados we drive on the left-hand side. So on the right side was railed up, because you can't get in the bus, you had to get in from on the left side. There's a running board there, you get on and size round, and it used to be 5 passengers in a seat. 5 passengers. And then they had no standing room. If you get in, you have to stay up. Well, somebody was kind enough sometimes to say, well, sit on my lap. Or if you're a man and there's a lady, you'll say, well, I can sit on your lap or something like that. And there was no discrimination on that. Everybody tried to help each other. If you got a big basket, the big basket used to go to the back of the bus. And the back of the bus was two seat, one facing each other. The last two seats in the back. Say, well, I sit here and buddy sit here. And you got that. And the baskets would go there. If you got a small hand basket, as you know, in those days, they would tell you the two sides of basket that we all used to have. There was a basket made from cabbage bark. Then there's another basket made from rush, which are called cane lily. We call it bulrush, but it was the correct name for it is cane lily. And those baskets used to plait. Had girls used to plait those baskets, and men used to make that cabbage basket about that big and about that tall and got the handle. And most of the ladies used to use those cabbage nut basket for groceries. You go to the shop, and you load up all your flour, your pound of sugar, your meal, all the thing, the lard of the bottle, the bottle top, or the bottles can, whatever it is. All that used to go in that basket, and it had a nice cover over it. And it was plait with that bark from the cabbage nut tree. And strong. Then the other basket, what I tell you about, which was the rush, that was plait fine and make a lot of designs in it. And that was not as sturdy as the cabbage nut tree basket. Then the girls had a fancy now. They wanted to make a basket, come with another little handbag. And you know what that handbag was made out of? Trumpeter cigarette boxes. They smoke the cigarette, they got you ready the box. The girls take the box and cut the box up in pieces and loops, and they plait those baskets. And those baskets was going like, it put your exercise books in it. We had a book called exercise books. You put it in that basket and travel with it to school or back from school. So that was our third basket. We had some girls in Superlative could have plait those baskets. Elaine Mapp was one. She could have plait that basket. Then it was Jean Niles could have plait that basket, and was Audrey Cox could have plait those baskets. So if I walk the street and all those cigarette boxes that shown, I pick them up, I accumulate them, and I go to Audrey or Jean or Elaine and say, I want a basket. They would plait it. They would plait it for you. Because I supply them. They didn't have to walk the streets and pick the boxes up. I supplied. I got all my boxes, so all they had to take a scissors and cross-cut the boxes and loop them in and plait the baskets to make a nice diamond shape and make a design in. And you couldn't believe a Trumpeter cigarette box could do something like that.
As you can see, like Greens, Superlative was also high on agricultural produce.
Oh, and the sugar cane time. St. George was loaded with sugar cane. All around every plantation, there was sugar cane. And not only sugar cane, there were fields of potatoes, there were fields of yams, there were fields of cassava. And I would tell you this, every cane field had the pea trees around it, pigeon peas, sweeping the ground. And then you know what? The beetles were so destructive to the pigeon peas that the managers of this plantation asked the children when they ain't doing anything at evening time if they could walk around the fields and collect these beetles by the pint. And he would pay them. If you bring a pint of beetles, he would pay you some kind of money, if it's 12 cents, 6 cents for the beetles. But breadfruits, pears, mangoes, golden apples, plums, guavas, everything you could get in. I don't even want a mango to eat now. I eat so much mangoes. My wife would tell you, I don't eat mangoes because I don't have the taste for them. Because when I was a little boy, mangoes was on the trees like nothing. Like they had gooseberry, everything. They had almonds, everything. Pomegranates, everything. So St. George really was a lot of things that used to grow in St. George didn't grow in a lot of parishes. I'm telling you, it wasn't growing in a lot of parishes. But the only thing St. George was not good on growing was peanuts. That was good for St. Lucy, and that was good for Christ Church and a part of St. Philip. But it didn't do too well in St. George. But everything grows in St. George. Even oranges, grapefruit. A fruit, we had a big grapefruit called a shaddock grapefruit. Then we had even calabash. People used it. A fruit called a calabash is not eaten, but is a fruit that you get a calabash and clean it out. It becomes a very good utensil for a kitchen. You could even put rice in or wash rice in it. You could wash ground provision in it. It becomes like a utensil, the calabash. Everything that we have.
For Edric, growing up in Superlative was certainly an adventure. From learning how to work the land, learning how to tame a rather stubborn mule, or did he? His adventures, of course, paints a picture for all who grew up in the heart of the breadbasket. Superlative, another area in St. George where fertility can be felt in the produce, in the land, in the sugar canes, and then in the creativity of using those canes. Join us for another edition of My Community as we continue to tell the story of the breadbasket right here in St. George. I'm Kimberly Skeet.
St. George, come from